Welcome to Data, Dollars, and Dynasty, the podcast where data meets destiny. 3 voices, 1 mission, using data to build a dynasty. Next.
AI presents significant opportunities. Everybody owes themselves this. Everybody owes themselves the opportunity to be curious. I think about opportunities. I always talk a lot about these doves on stop signs. It's like a little white bird that's sitting on this stop sign. And doves to me represent a new direction. I think about a dove. If that dove is on that stop sign and it flies off to the left, you probably want to follow it. So I see opportunities like that. Like sometimes the universe, life, gives you an opportunity, but you got to be looking for it.
Plus.
But here's the difference. When it comes to AI is learning by itself. It has the ability to improve by itself every day. And when it comes to the job market, we have to learn every day as far as what of our skills or which part of our skills are applicable to the current marketplace.
Also,
people have to have experience while they're going through college. When you tell a kid to go to college, you really have to double think that, because as a parent, you have to look at your child honestly and say, you have the work ethic to be able to compete against millions of others of your peers while you're still in school, while you're trying to get the good grade, to also get a foot into the door via these internships.
Now welcoming your hosts, Jeremy Sr., JJ, and Jayden.
Welcome to the 12th episode of our podcast, Data Dollar Dynasty. I'm your host, Jeremy Williams Sr. I have on the podcast with me today my sons and co-hosts, JJ Williams.
Welcome back, everyone.
And Jayden Williams.
Welcome. Pleasure to be here.
It's been about, 8 weeks? 7 or 8 weeks since we last came to you guys, to the audience here. And I think last opportunity we had a podcast with a few of our students. This podcast is going to be us. And we have some refreshing thoughts that we want to share with the audience, particularly on some successes that we've had. And I think it'll be customary to just say we've had a pretty fantastic 2025, right? And as we exit the Thanksgiving holiday, we're actually recording 2 days post Thanksgiving, our Turkey Day. And I think it just gives me an opportunity. I think it gives us opportunity to just think about what we should be thankful for in terms of what we've accomplished this year as an organization. Of course, we should also think about things that we've accomplished as individuals, but I think that we're starting this journey earlier this year, and I think our ideas around what we want to accomplish this year were pretty foggy initially. But as we enter into December, having gotten to podcast number 12 already, and I believe we're probably going to get 2 more done before the end of the year, I think that's a great success and something I'm definitely thankful for. Think about 2025. I think the things that come to my mind is just what's the significance of numbers. And I try to just peel 2025 back, and I couldn't get anything out of it. So I'm not going to take up too much time just dwelling on it, but I just think 2025 has been an exceptional year. And maybe I can figure out what the formula is. I mean, people tell you that there's always something behind numbers, right? I hadn't cracked that code yet, but I just think about us and what we've accomplished beyond just this podcast. Again, like I said, 12th episode, probably going to have 14 episodes done before the end of the year. We also had some tremendous success in furthering our understanding of AI and how we can leverage it to, again, help our organization and help the work that we expect to do or hope to do with our customers and even with our programs. I also think that we've had some success in discovering and evolving our organization to better position ourselves for what I think is going to be a tremendous 2026. So what I think I want to do today with this podcast, okay, I know we have some pretty rich topics that we want to discuss. I think what I like to do is just frame it from the standpoint of just being thankful, okay, as an organization, but then also understanding that a lot of people are struggling, and us not taking that perspective of selfishness, where we are just excited about ourselves and less excited about or less focused on what we can do to help other people who may not be in the position that we are going to be in as they enter into 2026. I just want to make certain that we are really keenly focused in on helping as many people as we can in 2026. Okay, so let's start by doing this. I want to talk about our recent successes, okay, and then I think we can then dovetail over into some articles that we want to talk about that relate to employment market or employment marketplace that I think our audience need to hear. And then I think we can then wrap the podcast up. So let's try to keep things to about 50, 60 minutes tops. And if we go over, we go over. But let's try to keep it to about 50, 60 minutes tops. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is, I think it was podcast 10. We had come to the audience. We talked about a conference that we were going to be attending in October. It was a Sickle Cell Disease Association of America. It's a conference that was held in Rosemont, Illinois. It was October the 18th through like the 21st, I believe. And we actually went up we had two hats that we wore. One hat was a vendor. We wanted to be there as an exhibitor to represent one of our primary health center clients, a health center based out of Rock Hill, South Carolina. We've talked about them on several podcasts by the name of North Central Family Medicine. And we were basically going up to represent their sickle cell support group, which we are participant in. And we set up a booth, of course, and we represented them from that light. But we also want to go up to be an abstract presenter. We had submitted an abstract earlier this year on, what was our topic, by the way, son?
That's right. So it was titled From Vision to Impact, Advancing Community-Centered Sickle Cell Equity in South Carolina and Beyond. Yeah,
so our role with this sickle cell support group, we were essentially brought on by North Central Family Medicine about 4 years ago. And we're like the awareness building guys with tech. They want us to come in and help them just expand and proliferate their message around the importance of being tested for sickle cell trait and knowing your status if you have sickle cell trait or sickle cell disease. And they had, at that point, 4 years ago, been fairly successful at least getting people to acknowledge the need to be tested for trait and disease. But ultimately, they felt that they needed a tech solution as well. So we came in and we did some things there. This abstract that we presented on was just basically a summary of that work. So I'm not going to go into too much detail there, but we presented a bunch of data in that abstract in terms of what when I say they, this is the health center, all that support group that we are a part of, just the total numbers of people that we've been able to get tested for sickle cell trait. And I'll talk shortly about what that is. So sickle cell trait is it's a blood disorder that predominantly affects African-American people. I think there's about 100,000 people in America that are believed to have sickle cell disease. There's about 3 million people in America that are believed to have sickle cell trait. Globally, those numbers probably top 200, 300 million people. All right. But just locally here, a small percentage of our population are affected by a trait or disease. And again, our work is just really bent around helping to expand that. So our abstract really focused in on that. And it also focused on a new project that we introduced this year. It was a training program that came about via some inspiration from a few sickle cell warriors around the need to expand the knowledge around the dangers that sickle cell trait has on athletes. So we produced this 1-hour training with the partnership of the Chief Medical Officer of North Central Family Medicine, a doctor by the name of Dr. Roosevelt Daniel. I put on a 1-hour training. We leverage AI and some tech to take that training, put it into a course, which we essentially offering up as a program called PPST Academy. And we presented on this data. Unbeknownst to us, apparently our abstract was pretty solid. So if I'm correct, I think it was about 28 abstract submissions, the largest number, I think by far, at one of these conferences. Again, this is only our second conference, so we hadn't necessarily participated in any abstract competitions prior, but 28 applicants, I think there were about 4 categories, and we ended up walking away a winner. We had a gala that Friday night. We went up that Wednesday. They had a gala, however you want to say it, that Friday night, and they got around to issuing winners and issuing some awards, and I heard my name called. So again, I think that was tremendous for us. Now, I think what I would second to say on that is that put us in a position to, again, introduce ourselves, our organization, Sandai Global and Sandai Cares, to this sickle cell community. I think from a perspective of us being a reliable resource for sickle cell associations across America. So we were able to, again, strike up some conversations with, I think, about 5 to 10 associations as we departed Illinois. So I think that's a great opportunity for us moving forward. You guys want to add anything to that before I think what you should do, JJ, talk a little bit about this PPST Academy. So let's not so much focus on that conference. Again, I think what I want the audience to know is that we, again, went up and we came back with some hardware, just a certificate, but we came back winners. All right. Which I think is going to set us up well for next year as we approach the conference next year. But let's talk about this PPST, because I think that is another one of our wins. Again, PPST, we established this this past, I think, June-ish. And I want you to just add some color there in terms of what we've been able to accomplish with PPST.
Yeah, definitely. So everyone, just to give you guys a bit of background information, essentially our main goal, our main objective when it comes to the PPST Academy is to help spread awareness regarding a few things that athletes or anybody that's particularly outside on a everyday basis, things that they experience or things that are at risk of experiencing, right? So as we all know, the planet is getting warmer and warmer with each year. And with that increase in temperature, that also increases the chances of people, running into medical complications and whatnot. So the whole objective of the PPST Academy is just to spread awareness regarding things such as exertional sickling, of course, exertional heat, right? Exertional heat, I guess you could say, problems, right? As far as getting outside, getting dehydrated and stuff like that. Asthma, right? All that stuff that can threaten somebody's life and put them in an emergency situation if they are outside for an extended amount of time. So what we're really doing is we want to get this initiative and get this, information regarding what we're doing out onto every campus around the entire nation. So the first thing we did was we essentially want to take care of the state of South Carolina. Of course, our primary client that we do serve is based out of Rock Hill, South Carolina, like Jeremy Sr. said earlier. And again, we wanted to basically start off with getting this awareness or this, again, program on every campus throughout South Carolina. So currently we're inside 5 colleges. And then we also have 2 more that we're also going to target as well.
Let's focus on that a little bit now. So
got you.
The PPST Academy is our way of building awareness up beyond South Carolina, because sickle cell trait, sickle cell disease, what we did know, and we figured this stuff out earlier this year, just again, by being curious, that we've had college athletes, college football players, about 25 athletes have died as a result of having sickle cell trait and being pushed in practice. All right. High temperatures, thirsty, whatever that does, it apparently has some kind of effect if you have trait. And this stuff has led to deaths. High school athletes, there have been some deaths. And high school football players, volleyball players, runners. We've had police officers die because they have trait. Military, same deal. So our program is really directed towards helping collegiate athletes, first responders, just know their status. All right, that's all it is. It's just an awareness building campaign. We have touched 50,000 plus people in South Carolina. We want to touch 3 million people plus across America with our training program. That's what PPST is about. It is a monetization opportunity for the health center as well. So, but how we see ourselves getting to that finish line, that 3 million plus persons viewing our content, we have to have partnerships. And what we decided to do at the collegiate level is to just leverage partnerships with colleges. And in South Carolina, we have, they're called HBCUs, historically Black colleges and universities. All right, we've partnered with about 5 HBCUs in South Carolina. We have 2 more that we're in the process of partnering with. We have 1 in Florida and 1 in Washington, D.C., okay? When we say partnership, what we mean is we're essentially offering up positions to students. We call them PPST ambassadors. And these students are essentially paid to help us develop a presence on their campuses. All right. So in addition to that, we have been successful at having a school person or personality or administrator also join the project. And we're extremely excited about what this is going to mean for our proliferation of our program and also what it means to be able to build up awareness around the nation. Our goal is in 2026 to potentially be on campuses of 300 or 400 colleges and universities. This would be HBCUs and non-HBCUs. We think that the program can serve as an awareness builder across all campuses in America and beyond. So that's that. Great success there. We're looking forward to 2026 there as well. And the last update that I want to give, I don't want to spend too much time on these updates, but our Data Gen Scholar program. All right, so our Data Gen Scholar program essentially has several different program offerings, right? We have expanded beyond our core offering, and I don't want to go into too much detail about what Data Gen Scholar is, but you see data, you hear Gen. It's just a training opportunity where we are upskilling youth, essentially, and adults in data and generative AI. Okay, so we have several different offerings. Our flagship offering, Data Gen Scholar, we have about 70 students from across the globe, mostly being based out of America, but we do have students from Asia and
Africa as well.
Africa,
South America,
right? And of course, North America here. So we got folks from Canada in the program, and we essentially give them an opportunity to get paid. We call it the learn, earn, and lead, our methodology, where we're showing kids how to, of course, learn this stuff. They get paid to learn it, and then we put them in positions to lead. Okay, so what I'm really excited about that flagship offering is a product that our students, we had about 59 of our 70 students participate in a market research project whereby they were able to go out and identify about 2,000 generative AI tools. Go out and find their presence online and give us a reporting or a market summary as to what the tool's name was, the modality that it serves, whether it's a conversational AI, like a text AI, PowerPoints, and music and all that other stuff, right? So they identified the price of it. Is it free? Is it a fee? And we put all this stuff into a table, and we've generated a white paper from this. All right. I'm just really excited about that for our students because their names are going to be presented in that white paper. And I think it's something that we can actually share with our clients and non-clients. All right. So I'm very excited about that. I'm also excited about a variant of that program, Data Gen Scholar, Jack and Jill. We had talked about this in podcast number 10 as well. We, back in September-ish, I believe, we were just starting the conversation with Jack and Jill of America. This is a mother-led organization. About 50,000 families participate in it. They have about 271 chapters across America. And essentially it's mothers basically priming up their students, their children for tomorrow. And it's just all about well-being, financial well-being, physical well-being. It's about being embedded, teaching them how to leverage the political system, just being leaders in their communities. And we've raised our hand to partner with them to offer up a variant of our flagship Data Gen Scholar program, whether it being a 12-month experience, which is what our flagship offering is. This is a 4-month experience, and it has a subset of experiences and learning experiences for these students. But the fact that we are now working with 3 chapters, these are 3 Florida-based chapters, Treasure Coast chapter, Suncoast chapter, and a Brevard County chapter. We have 40 students that have raised their hands to be a part of this experience, okay? Now for us, what does that look like? Okay, so I said a few seconds ago, there's 271 chapters, all right? And they're almost in every state, I believe, 3, 4, 5 chapters in every state. So it just looks like we have an opportunity to potentially partner with all those chapters. And you average about 13, 14 students a chapter, you're upwards of having the opportunity, or we are upwards of having the opportunity to influence the tomorrows of 3,000 plus students. So that stuff is all exciting for me. Okay. And podcast number 13, which we're going to film sometime early, not film, which we're going to record sometime early December. We're going to bring in our Jack and Jill partner, collaborator, Dietrich Wood. He's going to come in and talk about Jack and Jill and give us some more color on what Jack and Jill is about. But we're going to talk a lot about data and AI and how do they see us being able to help their students get ready for tomorrow's workforce. So we're looking forward to podcast 13. The next variant I want to talk about with Data Gen Scholar is our recent introduction. This is Jayden's program. One thing I try to do in this company, and I didn't talk about this earlier, but this company is essentially owned by my sons and my mom. So when I get up every day, I'm not even working for myself. like they work for me, but I work for them. That makes sense. All right. But one thing I'm careful to do is I try to find ways to put anyone that is looking up to me for guidance and leadership, I try to put them in a position where they can lead something. So it's just contrary for me to just expect for everybody that is in my sphere to want to lead something. Okay, because I'm not about having a bunch of robots and followers per se. I like leaders. Okay, I think social media says, how many followers do you have, right? I don't care for followers. The question is, how many leaders do you have, right? That's a metric that I will take to the grave. So Jayden has raised his hand to be a leader of another variation of Data Gen Scholar. It's called Data Gen Scholar, Next Step Scholar. All right. Jayden, do you want to talk about that program or you want me to talk about it?
Yeah, let me hop in and just give the audience a little bit of background information. So like Jeremy Senior just said, he said that he basically gives us opportunities to step up and to lead programs, but he just didn't go into too much depth about how we got to this portion of just being able to introduce his program. So originally he tasked the team with coming up with a new idea. He wanted each of us to kind of come to the table with fresh ideas on how we could basically, earn our portion or earn some money for ourselves, and then also just become better at bringing ideas and not just kind of being a robot, right? So my thing was I had spent a weekend thinking about some ideas, and then looking back, I was thinking about my high school experience and where I was coming into college. Obviously, this episode is going to be talking about mass layoffs and just a different landscape when it comes to jobs and how children have to think about their futures. But for me, I was thinking about experience. So for those kids that are in our program right now, a lot of them talk to us about job experience and how they're trying to get their names out there and to just try different things so that way they feel like they're better prepared to get internships or just jobs in whatever field they're interested in. And also me being in college, I've heard a lot of my peers talk about the lack of experience and also being tough job market right now to where they are unable to just get those opportunities, whether it be internships or whether it just be, again, entry-level positions. So my thing was like, we have a good name here with Sandai with Global End Care. So I was thinking just of how can we position ourselves to be leaders, to introduce young people into these fields and give them a little bit of experience, well, just give them a little bit of taste of experience without giving them just, the complete picture. And how can we profit off of that? So I sat down, I just thought about it. I said Next Step Scholars would be something that we can basically offer. What Next Step Scholars is a college prep, and it's also a work prep kind of program. So what students have the ability to come in and do is that they're able to come in and get up to 400 hours of work experience. And we have about 5 tracks that they can do regarding AI, audit, research, podcast production, and app development. We're also going to open up those tracks to do some more things as well. But this is basically just an offering for people to come in and get some quick work experience, to get a taste of, different things that they might be interested in, specifically regarding STEM, and then to just go off and be better off for that.
Yeah. I mean, so it goes back to what you talked about. I don't know what episode it was, podcast episode 9. That episode we talked about, this had to be like July. We were talking about then that 4 million Gen Z youth were unemployed. There's only 160 million people who are employed full-time, I believe, in America. So we're saying 4 million Gen Z youth were unemployed in July. Then we also had an article that talked about this thing called NEET. What was that? It was neither employed...
and training.
Yeah, training, you're looking for work or something like that.
Yeah,
right?
something like that, right? So, and I talked about that podcast about students having blank resumes. Like, students having blank resumes, they have poor job experience, poor work experience, but they're looking for jobs. And so for us, the Next Step Scholar program is just a way to unblank resumes. Unblank resumes. We just believe that where things are headed, and we're going to talk about a few things here in a second. We got a couple articles that we're going to introduce to the audience here in a second. That's going to shed more color on our belief here that I'm going to introduce here in a second. We got a video that we're going to actually share some content on too, that's going to shed light on this. But we just think that the academic experience has to change. The academic experience has to change. The days of paying to get theoretical knowledge, like go to school for 4 years, sit in the classrooms half the time, you're probably learning about something you're not going to use anyway, right? Something that's irrelevant to the workforce. That's theoretical knowledge to me. Right? It's not real knowledge for that job. Employers, since the beginning of time, have had to bring people in and train them, okay? College is not necessarily a training ground for employers' workforce. The employer still has to do work with that person when they come to their doors, all right? So that's what I call theoretical knowledge. The days of paying, going to college, $30,000, $40,000 a year, $50,000, $60,000 in some cases. Getting theoretical knowledge, those days are done. Maybe not for all of us. For most of us, they're done. I think the expectation, and we're going to share some light here. We go through these articles in this video. Expectation is for students to have experience. We think that it has to transition from paying for theoretical knowledge to paying for practical knowledge, for real knowledge. For, I think Barack Obama used to call this stuff back when we had the fiscal collapse, 2008. He called them shovel-ready projects. I mean, to put people back to work, like maybe it was Joe Biden, one of them. Shovel-ready, meaning I can put something in somebody's hands, they can go to work tomorrow, right? We think that people have to pay to get practical shovel-ready experience. And that's what Next Step Dollar is really about. It's about giving business-focused, finance-focused, tech-focused students an ability to pay a small fee to get schooled up, to get some work experience, to put something on a resume that's valid, something more valid than flipping a burger or bagging some groceries.
Now, for a quick commercial break to share some key program insights.
You've got grades, you've got ambition, but now you need experience that counts. The Data Gen Scholar Next Step Scholars Program delivers real-world data and AI assignments, tiered tracks, and visible proof of your skills. This is how you move from learning to earning. Explore your path now at datagenscholar.com/next-step-scholar-program.
Now back to the podcast.
All right, so let's do this. Let's go ahead and shift over to this article. The first article I want to talk about, and this thing is from somebody that's fresh off the press. I mean, I got up this morning literally to prepare for this podcast, and the first thing I see like flashing in my eyes, this article. What's the article called?
The name of this article is going to be Mass Layoff Warnings Climb to Highest Level in Nearly a Decade. And basically, this article reports that in 2025, the number of mass layoff warnings in the U.S., which was tracked by the mandatory filings known as WARN notices, which are basically worker adjustment and retraining notification alerts, I believe. These require employers to provide 60 days notice before mass layoffs, but these have risen sharply. These warnings are now at the highest level since 2016, which is pre-pandemic, right? So in other words, more companies are basically signaling that layoffs are coming, and that's a red flag for the labor market, and that suggests that job stability is weakening currently. So just to go in a little more depth, data from 2025 shows that mass layoff announcements have jumped significantly. According to one tracking firm, job cuts surged to 153,000 in October alone, which was up 175% from October of last year. And overall, up to this point, we have reached up to 1.1 million announced job cuts.
You want to chime in here, JJ?
Yeah, again, I mean, we're seeing this. We've been talking about it this whole year in our previous episodes, everyone. It's just the job market is looking very grim right now for, entry workers, people that's entering it, as well as those that may have been in it for some time and are looking to go to a new role. It's not looking the best at all.
Yeah, so this is all new to me. I've never heard of this thing before. It was called the WARN. I kind of like it because it implies warning. Like I think about this like a flashing red light, like flashing, right? Warn. So I'm gonna repeat that for you again. So you said worker adjustment, retraining, notification.
Yeah. Adjustment
and retraining. And you're saying that this is a notification that's issued to, do we know who it goes to, or is it?
I think it's local governments, either state or local governments.
Yeah, so apparently like whoever wrote this article, they're saying that it's been an uptick. It's like businesses out there whispering. They're saying, hey, you about to fire people. That's what this sounds like to me. And they're saying that apparently this alert, that the alert is signifying something is coming. And I think for me, we've been, like you said, JJ, we've been looking at this stuff all year. The worst number in this article to me is just 1.1 million job cuts to date. They're saying through October. This doesn't include November numbers. Mm-hmm. Through October, the year-to-date job cuts have reached 1.1 million people. That's steadily going up the whole year. Now, that 1.1, I know when it was back at 900,000 job cuts, about a third of those job cuts were Black women. About 300,000 of those job cuts were Black women, okay? And unfortunately for African-American women, or Black women, they tend to be what they call a canary in the coal mine. It's like they are the warning system for the rest of us, right? This is the non-African-American women, that's whatever that percentage of the population that represents, that we might be next. That's what that says. So if we're saying that, again, when it was 900,000 losses, okay, 1/3, that means 1 out of every 3 people was a Black woman. This is just not a great sign for many of us as we enter into 2026. Now, of course, I think a sizable percentage of those job cuts for African-American women were related to the federal workforce, okay? Again, I don't know whether, I think it's about 2/3 of those losses for African-American women were tied to federal workforce reductions. But it's still indicative to me of what's to come. And I think for me too, the most peculiar aspect of this 1.1 million is when I think about how our society functions, just in terms of have versus have-nots. So I think about, from a business perspective, think about the big companies, the Fortune 500, the Fortune 1000, top 2,000 companies in America. They probably employ a third of our population, of our citizenship. All right, the top 2,000, 3,000 companies do. Companies that size, you figure $100 million plus revenue generators, they don't have problems really obtaining technology. Right, so they have access to technology. They can go out, they can experiment, they can buy technology to improve their prospects, efficiencies, and things of the like, make their companies a little leaner. And of course, that then contributes to this 1.1 million, okay? But a silent factor that a lot of us don't know is that small businesses, okay, it's about 34 million small businesses in America, maybe 35 million, okay? 6 million or so of those, of that 35 million, actually have employees. So about 28 million small businesses are considered sole proprietors. All right, just one person is the owner running that business. But 6 million of those small businesses, again, have employees. If you look at the data, about 45 to about 48% of all employees in America are employed by small businesses. So back to this haves versus have-not concept I just introduced. When I think about the haves, again, the haves are the big companies. They get the tech early, but then there's this trickle down. There's a trickle down that happens eventually, maybe a year or 2 years later, where the have-nots start to benefit from market efficiencies as well. I just see a tomorrow where small businesses are going to start using this AI as aggressively and as assertively as the big guys. And I see 65 million possibilities of unemployment. This is what I see. So when I think about this 1.1 million, my concern is, well, not my concern, it's just I understand that doesn't really capture small businesses. That's my concern, guys. So let's go to the next article. And this next article is from Jeff Bezos. So JJ, you want to cue that one up? Let's just introduce the title of it and let's talk about what Jeff Bezos is talking about. I just think when Jeff comes to the table, like we talked about Anthropic CEO, we talked about Walmart CEO, we got Ford CEO. He's always in the news. Okay, we had articles from Ford CEO that we're not going to divulge here today. Walmart CEO, we talked about podcast 11, our last podcast with our students. They're freezing hiring. Walmart is freezing hiring. They're the biggest company on the planet, and they're freezing hiring to figure this AI out. Okay, so Walmart's doing it, guys. Everybody's gonna do it. These guys all talk. Okay, all right. So if they're doing it, everybody's gonna do it. Now, I hadn't really heard much from Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos has a position. Let's talk about that position, JJ.
All right, let's do it. So the name of this article, or the title I would say, is Jeff Bezos names the kind of employee who wins in the AI era. So just to give you guys some background knowledge, recently, or I would say on November 17th, Jeff Bezos was named the co-CEO of his own AI startup, right? And the name of that startup is Project Prometheus. And essentially the whole objective is for him to get his footing into the AI space, right? We know OpenAI, they have a large portion of the market share under control with ChatGPT, but you also have big players like Microsoft, Google, Anthropic, and all of the sorts, right? So essentially, he started his own organization. He wants to, again, get his share of the pie. And the one thing that he's saying is that employees need to know, basically, I guess you could say, one skill that encompasses a ton. And that one skill is continuous learning. Now, he didn't say that quote for quote, but essentially, that is what he's referring to, right? Employees need to know how to learn on a continuous basis in order to survive in this AI era that we're quickly approaching.
You want to add something, Jayden?
Yeah, I think he definitely emphasized the thing of continuous learning. I also want to include that he also talked about the people who succeed with AI are going to be the ones who understand how to use it instead of just trying to compete with it. We already know that technical skills and things like that, AI can do a lot of the things that can be automated. Like a lot of these tasks that can be done repetitively can be done by AI easily. The person that's going to succeed is the person that doesn't try to beat it in its own arena, person that tries to come in and uses it to reinforce what they're already doing regarding projects. So whatever it is that they might be doing, they're using it to amplify their skills. So yeah, that's just what I wanted to add.
All right. So look, what did Jeff say in his article? He said every job is going to be inflected by AI. That's the first thing he says. Now, we talked at length about this stuff all year, everybody. The audience, we've been saying this stuff. I just think early part of the year was kind of silent. You had a couple guys coming out whispering in your ears, hey, you're going to start cutting. Anthropic CEO, he was early to say this stuff. Sam Altman came out and said some stuff on it. This is the founder, the CEO of OpenAI. I just see blatant, that's almost like screaming. January, February, whispers. I just see these guys are like screaming now. They're saying every job is going to be affected. I think I talked on a previous podcast about these CEOs are in the room where it happens, man. Even here at Sandai, we learn this stuff as we go day to day. We're not even creators of this technologies, right? We're just users of the technology. But when we start to use what these people probably seen 2 years ago, because we're using stuff now, they probably saw 2 years ago, at least early part of the year, right? I'm saying it. I just don't see how some roles are going to continue to exist. Now, if you're seeing what Jeff is seeing, what these Anthropic guys, the creator of Claude is seeing, Altman, ChatGPT, what they're seeing, they can talk definitively with confidence to say that jobs are going to be affected. Now, this is what Jeff is saying in his article. He calls it a meta competence, such as the ability to learn continuously, to think critically about technology, or to exercise judgment in ambiguous situations, rather than to a narrow technical credential. This idea of just getting a job based on a degree or even a trade, those days are done, man. Nobody wants anybody to come to the table with stale knowledge. They want you to learn daily. When I think about like AI, and I'm probably going to reserve some of this for my closeout, it's one of these now, today versus tomorrow concepts that people are going to have to start considering in terms of how they learn. Do I put my learning off for tomorrow, or do I start that learning today? And I'll talk more about this as I wrap up, but I think what Jeff is saying now, Jeff Bezos is in the game. He has seen something that said to him, oh, I got to jump in this. For him to come out of retirement, because he's no longer Amazon CEO, he's certainly on the board and all that, but for him to come out of quote unquote retirement, like JJ said, get his piece of the pie, he's seen something.
Now, for a quick commercial break to share some key program insights.
Every number tells a story, but only if you know how to read it. At Sandai Global, we transform data into direction for small businesses, nonprofits, and enterprise clients alike. Whether it's AI automation, strategic dashboards, or advanced analytics, our solutions redefine what's possible when people and data work together. Learn more at sandaiglobal.net.
Now back to the podcast.
So let's go to this last, I don't call it an article, it's a video. Who's going to drive this? You, Jayden?
Yeah.
All right, I want you to give some context around the name of the video first. Then we're going to play a couple pieces of this for the audience to hear, and I'll cue up when I want you to stop. But I want to look at this from two different directions here. I want to look at the first part of this video, then I want to progress to the middle part where it talks about the skills needed for entry-level work.
Okay, yeah. So the title of this video is going to be Why Even Harvard's Smartest Graduates Can't Get a Job. And it just kind of goes into depth on how even Harvard MBA graduates aren't safe from the job market right now.
23% of Harvard MBA students were jobless 3 months after graduating. Graduates from one of the most prestigious business schools in the world, with multiple degrees and supposed golden tickets to success, are struggling to find employment for over a year.
You know it's bad when 1 out of 4 people graduating from Harvard with their MBAs can't get a job.
If Harvard MBAs can't secure jobs, what does that mean for everyone else? According to the Wall Street Journal, Gen Z graduates are facing the worst job market in over a decade. The 3-month moving average unemployment rate for recent graduates currently sits at around 5%, slightly above the national average of 4.2%. This represents a rare reversal, one of the few times in decades that unemployment among new grads has exceeded the general rate. For college graduates specifically, the unemployment rate has climbed to levels not seen since the pandemic. Here's where it gets strange. While many employers say they're struggling to fill vacancies, the second highest rate in 2 decades, graduates can't seem to land interviews, let alone jobs. A 2022 study of over 300 job applications submitted by departing interns found that only 12% received any response from employers. 5% expressed interest in the applicant. Not a single application resulted in a hire. Employers were actually more likely to ghost candidates if the graduate met over 90% of the listed requirements. The disconnect between available jobs and actual hiring reveals something more troubling. So-called ghost jobs have flooded the American labor market.
Couple things here. MBAs, that's a golden ticket. That's that Willy Wonka stuff. Remember Willy Wonka, I got a golden ticket. Remember that?
That's right.
All right, so you get into Harvard, HBS, that's a golden ticket. I came out UVA 2005, Harvard 95, 99% placement rate within 3 months of graduation, meaning most MBAs had jobs 95% of the time before they even got to graduation. Now, of course, Harvard's not the top ranked business school. I mean, it's top 3 easily, but just that name brand. So if you're saying that 1 out of 4 Harvard graduates from HBS can't get work quickly, Houston, we got a problem. Last podcast, I talked about when you get an MBA from these good schools, these elite schools, you get jobs. They're saying Harvard's at 75% now. Just imagine what it will be if you're like a tier 2, tier 3 school with an MBA. That's what I was saying. It's still 75% is a C. That ain't failing. You go get some of these MBA programs, it's probably gonna be 20% placement rates. So I just think from that perspective, that article, that's telling you we got a problem. When Harvard, and I'm not saying these are the most valued graduates on the planet, I'm not saying that. But when an HBS graduate can't get a job, 1 out of 4 of them, that's a canary in the coal mine. 4 college graduates. That was called a golden ticket. $200,000 a year salary, 26, 27, $250K total package, golden ticket. Second thing it said there, for me, it talked about interns. These are people who have been paid, they got their foot in the door, they've taught the leadership, they taught the manager, they work for somebody in the company, and they're being ghosted. That's what that talked about. Third thing, he talked about these ghost jobs. Now, we're not gonna go into too much detail there. That just says that it's gonna be a scary day for a lot of graduates, being that the entry-level jobs are fake jobs. Now, we're not gonna play that clip in its entirety there, because I wanna fast forward to that middle section. What that ghost job piece is about is, it's all about companies putting up jobs to, one, quell the angst of their current employee base. In some instances, they're putting up jobs just to make people believe that help is coming. They're working them exhaustively, I'm guessing, and to help them think that somebody's coming to help them, they put the job up. But it's a fake job. Second areas of that is they are putting up jobs to sell the market on growth, that they're growing. The companies are doing this, all the while knowing that they're fake. I think it says in that piece, we're not going to keep playing it, that a third of the recruiters, 250 recruiters that they surveyed, a third of them said, yeah, we put up fake jobs.
That's right.
Let's get to that middle part. I want to play the part that references the skills piece that these youth need to have now.
No matter how qualified you are. The human connection that once defined hiring has been reduced to algorithms and automation. Out of 3.8 million jobs on LinkedIn, nearly 40% of entry-level positions required 3 to 5 years of experience. A study by Generation, a nonprofit network, found that 94% of employers surveyed across 8 countries, including the US, required applicants for entry-level tech jobs to already have relevant experience. In the last 5 years alone, there's been a 20% increase in the number of skills required on job listings. Entry level no longer means entry level. This impossible standard forces graduates into a devastating cycle. You need experience to get a job, but you need a job to gain experience.
More often than not, it's literally just rejection, rejection, rejection.
Sorry, you need 3 years of experience. Actually, I was inquiring about the entry-level position. You need 3 years of experience for that job.
The only escape route is internships, and competition for these positions has intensified dramatically.
This is absolutely crazy. It's like a cycle that you have to try your hardest to break into, but it's like you come into it, you expect that, okay, I'm going to be able to graduate, get a job, and they tell you you need more than just a degree. You spent all this time putting effort into your studies and kind of ignore everything. That's no longer the option for people. Like, people have to have experience while they're going through college. It's just absolutely insane to me. The fact that we're sending kids off the cliff, to me, honestly, it feels like when you tell a kid to go to college, you really have to double think that. You have to kind of triple think that, honestly, because as a parent, you have to look at your child honestly and say, do you have the work ethic to make it in this tough economy? Like, do you have the work ethic to be able to compete against millions of others of your peers while you're still in school, while you're trying to get the good grades, to also get a foot into the door via these internships?
So look, we talked about this stuff in podcast Go 10. The American dream was all about getting a piece of paper. You go to college, you graduate, you get married, you have some kids, get you a house, some cars, some vacations, work 20, 30, 40, 50 years, retire, go to Tahiti, Hawaii, go to Mexico, you die. That's what they told you. What's a dream? That's what it is, a dream. So we're looking at more of a nightmare now, guys, because that dream just is not applicable for most. I just said it earlier, like the days of paying for theoretical knowledge ain't sexy no more. Using that word again, sexy. You got theoretical knowledge, you making me yawn. They don't want that. The employer don't want that anymore. Bezos kind of said this. They want to know what your practical knowledge is. So it said this, here's the number for me. And this goes back to why I think we're going to have an exceptional 2026. And I'm hoping that what I'm sharing here for the audience, anyone who's listening, and I'll talk about this as I conclude this podcast, there's a host of opportunities for everybody. If you're curious about AI, if you're curious, it's okay to get up, watch some football games. It's okay to tailgate, go watch some basketball games. It's cool. Watch a movie, drink some wine, hang out with your friends, do it. But you got to allocate time to learning about AI. You got to do it. These companies want practical experience. They want to know that you're going home and you're doing your homework. That when they're not looking at you, that you're learning, that you're getting better. Bezos calls it meta competence. I just think our program, Data Gen Scholar, Next Step Scholars, is going to be exceptional for us. A couple of things that video just said. It says 94% of companies that were surveyed across 8 countries. I don't know what those 8 countries were, and maybe we should look at this, sons. 94% said they want tech applicants to have work experience. I'm not even sure how many companies that even represents, but I'm guessing it's probably a good 400, 500,000. That's a good sample size to me. They want youth to have work experience. And I think that's what our Next Step Scholar program is all about. Next Step Scholar is really saying that rather than you paying to get theoretical experience, pay to get some practical experience. All right, it's just taking a pragmatic approach to your learning journey. Theoretical stuff has to go out the door.
Everyone, we're at a point in time where what we're seeing is not new, but it is. So let me get some context regarding that. So essentially, and this is unfortunate, right? Everybody that's going through this or seeing what's happening with the current job market because of AI, we're in that transition of, again, where we have a technological innovation that's drastically changing things. And we have seen this throughout history numerous times, right? And I'll give you an example. When cars were invented, right? We had horses. If you operated with horses, did anything with horses, horses basically became irrelevant once cars hit the marketplace. And then same thing when it comes to fast forward to computers. When computers hit the marketplace, it forced people again to learn a new skill. And again, the same thing was when it came to cars, you had to learn how to drive and whatnot. But there's a main difference when it comes to AI. And I think this sort of just encompasses everything we talked about before, is that we're now again in this next technological innovation period to where things are changing. But here's the difference. When it comes to AI, AI is learning by itself. It has the ability to improve by itself every day. So it's sort of like we're entering a new technological innovation period every day, which makes it so dangerous, right? Computers, they couldn't necessarily improve on their own. It took an extended amount of time for computers to improve, right? Maybe you had a new system software, and we talked about this earlier, every year. When it comes to cars, same thing. It took a period of time for that technology to improve, which means people could take time to learn the new skills needed to operate those technologies. But again, when it comes to AI, because this stuff is improving every day, that means it's a little different. We, as consumers, as people that live on this planet, right, in this new age, we have to learn every day. And when it comes to the job market, we have to learn every day as far as what of our skills or which part of our skills are applicable to the current marketplace. That's really just my thoughts. Again, this is just talking about that even more. It's like the things that we knew yesterday, they're not going to be applicable to tomorrow. And because it's AI, there's other stuff as well, but it's AI is just so different compared to any other technological innovation that we have seen as an entire human race at all. So that's sort of my thoughts. If you haven't seen anything or heard anything on the podcast so far that's really provoking you to start learning every day, I think this definitely should be it. Because again, the job market is looking very grim. And the things you did yesterday are not going to work for tomorrow.
Absolutely. The job market, it's not what I say it's grim even. It's just, you're looking at it from the standpoint of yesterday's jobs. It's grim. If you're looking at it from the standpoint of new jobs yet to be created, optimism, I think it's bountiful. It's not necessarily grim to me. It's not dreary.
Gotcha.
I think people just have to be curious. You got to start turning these rocks over. You got to start tinkering with these tools. You got to start learning this stuff. You got to start embedding it into your own personal workflows. Think about these companies. They're talking about, okay, come in here and learn how to use these tools. And we want you to put these tools into your workflows to make you more efficient for us. Companies are going to need people. You sent a video or article or something earlier this week where it talked about the talent pipeline. Like if you don't have entry-level workers, at some point, the older workers are going to exit the stage.
That's right.
So if you're not bringing anybody through that pipeline, through that conduit and grooming them, who are going to replace those people? All companies are going to have people. It's just that the role is going to look different. So where a person has an opportunity is to just be curious about how the role is going to look different. And then that's the role you want to start targeting. But you got to start asking questions. You got to start imagining things. You got to start dreaming even. Like that American dream, I think still can be possible. It's going to require a little bit more than just taking somebody's word for it though. Like somebody says, go get this degree and all this is going to be awaiting you. You can't take that word anymore. You got to now go out and create that future for yourself. By again, just being curious and activating your thirst for knowledge. That's all these guys are saying. They're not even saying that they don't want to hire people. What they're saying is they don't want to hire lazy people. They don't want to hire, I say to you guys sometimes, robots. They want you to be curious, continuously curious. They don't want you to get stale. That's what they're saying. You get stale, we got the bail. That's how that works. And with AI don't get stale. AI is ravenous when it comes to knowledge. It wants to learn data. all day. It wants to get better every day, every second. That's AI. Question we have to ask ourselves is, how do we compete with that? Or how do we not even compete with it? How do we leverage it? How do we embed that into our own workflows? How does that become our norm? That's how I look at that. It's not even about it being something that I just use like a hammer when I need to build something. How do I embed it into my everyday? And that's what continuous learning looks like to me. I think that was the last article. I don't think we need to spend too much more time on this.
Now, for a quick commercial break to share some key program insights.
Imagine a world where every student, parent, and professional has access to the tools shaping tomorrow's economy. That's what we're building at Sandai Cares, a movement to democratize data and AI education for all. Join us in empowering communities to create, innovate, and lead through technology. Discover how you can get involved at sandaicares.org.
Now back to the podcast.
I want to now just wrap up the podcast. I think we've talked at length about our successes and where we're headed in our society. And I think what we're going to be doing as a company, even at us as individuals, I think our curiosity and you guys' consistency, my perseverance has put us in a position for us to have an amazing 2026. Amazing from a standpoint of our own personal benefits and in our ability to help others as well. So I want to wrap this podcast up. I'm going to give you guys maybe a couple seconds to say a couple things and then I'll conclude.
Personally, for me, I would just say I'm thankful for, I think starting in January, we obviously knew we had a whole bunch of things that we wanted to get accomplished, but we didn't have necessarily a roadmap in place. And just regarding this podcast even, we kind of just came into it kind of with the mindset of let's see what happens. So for me, I would just say, personally, I'm thankful for just being able to still be here at the end of this year, to be able to be on our 12th episode recording. I've definitely have learned a lot from these podcasts and just being able to just be around Jeremy Sr. and my brother and just being able to create this community amongst the viewers, to be able to learn from each other and just be able to come on here and just spread ideas to the greater world. I think looking back at January, Jayden, I think he would definitely be proud going into December, Jayden. And I think that looking back at January Sandai is definitely much better off as December Sandai. So yeah, I'm just immensely thankful for being able to have a good year. This year was full of firsts for me. I created that program, Next Step Scholars, and we're getting that shipped off. So I think 2026, like my dad said, is going to be a great year for us regarding that initiative, first podcast, and then also just being able to do things like attending my first professional conference and things like that. I'm thankful for everything that the company and this has brought me in terms of just work experience. I'm better off than a lot of my peers are, I would say, given the job market and how much people are looking for ways out and looking for ways into the job market, right? I'm just thankful for all that, and I'm thankful for just having my father again to be able to be at the forefront of it all, and to be able to guide us, and to be able to just spread his leadership onto us as well. So yeah, I'll hand it over to JJ though.
Yep, definitely. And I don't think I could have said anything better. So echo what Jayden said, everyone. Again, I'm very thankful for all we've done. Here at Sandai, we basically follow that slogan for Nike, to just do it. And Jeremy Sr., he can attest to this, Jayden as well. But when it comes to something that we want to do, we essentially just do it. We don't necessarily think about what ifs, especially not negative possibilities. It's sort of always, you never know what could happen. And of course, we also had the mindset that we want to do this to sort of give back to you guys. So of course, I'm thankful for all the progress we made. I'm thankful for all my loved ones. But I'm also thankful for you guys for tuning in and listening to us. And, just hearing what we got to say. And I understand that there's a lot of fake news out there, right? And our objective is not to give you guys all the information 24/7, right? That's obviously probably not possible. But what we do want to do is give you guys real information, give you guys our real thoughts, our real insights, so that you can take it and then, of course, use it yourself however you please. That's our main objective, and that's always going to be our objective, even going into 2026. So hopefully you guys can tune in, stay with us for the journey. Of course, share your knowledge as well. We're going to be opening up, for you guys to come in and talk with us here pretty soon. But yeah, like I said, thank you guys for tuning in. It's been a hell of a year. And I look forward to making 2026 even better.
Yeah, we're going to have a couple more podcasts for this year is up, though. We're going to do a 13 with the Jack and Jill. And we have another person we're going to bring in that's passionate about our work with Jack and Jill. So that's going to be an exciting podcast. And we're going to probably finish the year with some of these students. We can probably rehash some of these things we're thankful for and what we're looking forward to do in terms of mobilization of our many initiatives in 2026. And we talk about wealth and stuff like that. We're looking for a pretty successful year next year. I think what I want to say is, I said earlier, we have a lot to be blessed for, but I won't make this about us. I just think about the work that we do has always been based in the little guy and little guys. I'm from an underprivileged background. You guys have been blessed a little differently between your mom and I and the environment we've been able to put you guys in. But a lot of people in America are struggling, man. We're still in November. We started this month with people not getting SNAP payments. Remember, there's 42 million people, 42 million Americans struggle to put food on their tables. It's only 350 million of us, right? So 18% of us are struggling to put food on the table, meaning that they have to rely on government subsidies to put food on the table. I understand that many of those people who suffered for about 4 or 5 weeks of getting no benefit, many of them are going to lose that benefit permanently. I'm not taking a position on that, but people are going to suffer. Throw into that, 1.1 million people lost their jobs this year. Low hire, low fire work environment, which means people are having to wait months and months to get a job. People are having to swallow their pride and do jobs that they didn't think they were ever going to have to consider. DoorDash, stuff like that, right? These are people with degrees and credentials that are having to swallow their dignity, reinvent themselves just to make ends meet. Throw into that rising healthcare premiums. It's not getting any easier. So I think the work that we're going to continue to do is we're going to try to find ways to continue to produce programs aimed at helping people, I'm going to say the little guys again, find these pathways. I think I want to end by just saying this. AI presents significant opportunities. Everybody owes themselves this. Everybody owes themselves the opportunity to be curious. I think about opportunities. I always talk a lot about these doves on stop signs. It's like a little white bird that's sitting on this stop sign. And doves to me represent a new direction. When I think about a dove, if that dove is on that stop sign and it flies off to the left, you probably want to follow it. So I see opportunities like that. Like sometimes the universe, life gives you an opportunity, but you got to be looking for it. There's this saying, if I ask you, how many red cars did you see yesterday? You couldn't answer it. If I told you today, though, I said, tell me the number of red cars you see tomorrow and I'll give you $100 per car. You'll be looking for red cars because you can attach some kind of a benefit to it. That's how opportunity works. It's just not going to be there waiting for you to find it. You have to be looking for it. What I'm most fearful of when I think about this AI, this journey that we're on as a society, is I'm more fearful of people procrastinating. Many of us take this wait now, see later approach. Well, I'll do it tomorrow. I'm gonna get to it. I just think with the speed of change with AI, it just requires how we rewire ourselves. We have to think about time differently now. Like I said, you talked about horses, you talked about computers, JJ. Think about like phones and technology of the past. Think about jobs and the work that we had to do yesterday. Even our competitors, we were competing for opportunities. We always had time to compete, time to prepare. So we could wait 6 months before we, quote unquote, upskilled ourselves, or we could wait 6 months before we trained for that race. I just think AI is impatient. It don't want to wait. It don't sleep. I looked up online the word now or today. Synonym for today is now. So now is today, synonym. I looked up tomorrow, future. They call them tomorrowers, is another word for procrastinators. So a person that always talks about tomorrow is a tomorrower, is a procrastinator. We got to become a todayers. We got to become nowers. Those are doers, like next seconders. AI is just changing the game. I just think for most of us who wake up, we have to find a way. We must find a way to get inspired to start learning. Now, I have fears, but I also have some hopes. So my hope for December and beyond is that we, as people, figure out our path to persistence. I'm bringing that up because one of my favorite books, I would love to probably talk about this on a future podcast about how this book even came into my hands. It was one of those dove on a stop sign kind of moments. It's a book called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Not going to go into too much detail about this, but it's a book that gives you understanding of how a bunch of people obtain their wealth. These are folks like Henry Ford, person who started Coca-Cola, and Colonel Sanders in there. So there's a bunch of people in there who are in business. You got some athletes in there too. That this guy, Napoleon Hill, essentially had opportunity to interview and figure out all these different things that these people did day to day that made them successful. These people all come from nothing. In chapter 9, it's about the 8th step to riches. It's persistence. It's called the sustained effort necessary to induce faith. In order for you to have faith in something or attain faith, you have to be persistent about something. Persistent. I'm just going to read something from this book, and I'm going to conclude this element of this podcast. But it just says, persistence is an essential factor in the procedure of transmuting desire into a monetary equivalent. The basis of persistence is the power of will. Willpower and desire, when properly combined, make an irresistible pair. People who accumulate great fortunes are generally known as cold-blooded and sometimes ruthless. Often they are misunderstood. What they have is willpower, which they mix with persistence and use as the basis of their desires to ensure the attainment of their objectives. What I'm saying here, everybody, audience, is we have to become persistent about learning AI. We have to be persistent about visualizing our tomorrows. We have to be persistent about understanding what type of a tomorrow we're going to occupy, what kind of job we're going to hold. We have to envision this stuff, and we can't necessarily see it. As you said, JJ, you call it the grim. I don't think you should look at it that way. I think you should look at it from an optimistic standpoint. You got to look at it from a standpoint of purpose. And you got to really try to define what that is for yourself. That's what we do here at Sandai. We get up every day and we take what we have before us and we just make sense of it. We do a lot of Googling. We do a lot of chatgpt just to figure out what opportunities lie. I think everybody has to get in the act of doing that. Just getting up each day, trying to base your day in understanding what's going on in your communities and your societies. Figure out a way to embed AI into your everyday and then leverage it to identify causes, opportunities. We talked to our students in our Data Gen Scholar, one of our calls. I think last month we talked about looking at ways to monetize causes. I think if we use this stuff, if we're using it daily, it just becomes a part of who we are. It becomes rote. It becomes a part of us. No different than what you guys do when you want to go to that gym. You don't think about it at all. You just go into the gym. Some days you don't want to go, right? But you get up and you just go. I think AI has to be thought of the same way. And most of us have things that we like to do. I just think AI has to become rote, just like those things that we like to do, call them vices. AI needs to become a vice for all of us, or a device for all of us to help empower us and help us become the superheroes I think we can become as people if we put this stuff to use.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Data, Dollars, and Dynasty. The views and opinions expressed in this episode are those of the individual speakers and do not reflect the views and opinions of Sandai Global or Sandai Cares. Visit us on our website at datadollarsdynasty.com to learn more about our companies and our priorities. Also, follow us on social media at Data Dollars Dynasty. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Thanks again for tuning in. We look forward to catching you on the next episode.